hear us? Are you on Zoom?
It was better than the comments were. Well, and they didn't listen to the hearing, you can tell, or the meeting.
Got 131 comments on Facebook. I had 22 phone calls
About you?
About last night.
about last night.
You know, it's like,
I thought
Was it
all
crowded?
went
Was it
well
crowded
last
in
night.
here?
Yeah, they said it was full.
people were bringing up, well, have you heard all the problems Cottonwoods had with Emery Riddle? I go, there's a big difference. We're talking about a CUP on a private airstrip. Cottonwood's a public airport.
I told them
Totally
all the
different.
same thing. 40 flights a day, 747s loaded with 312
They can't
people.
talk about it.
And turbo,
We don't want to violate open meetings. Careful.
turboprops.
They'll all be filled with paraquat, so if it goes, it's,
They're not listening.
They're not listening.
We're joking now.
Thank you.
Oh, well.
Do we have to wait for him to go?
We'll wait for him. Another 34 seconds.
You see how much of this fentanyl is gonna fall out?
It's gonna get us both if it does. Look, it's fairy tale. Brownies.
Excellent.
They haven't looked at my waistline lately. have
They are excellent.
Just what I need.
They're going to my wife.
Next, they'll be giving me a bigger belt.
Yeah. Might need one. So 50. When we went to go to Utah to go side by side riding.
Zoom did something crazy within the last few days. And it's
I've been a radius rod on that car. So you don't buy one, you buy a set. So. Those things should hold up. They shouldn't bend.
Do the work yourself.
Aircraft aluminum, yeah.
Andrew, I understand that you're in the Zoom meeting. Can you hear me okay?
Everybody heard the duck.
Bueller?
That's just.
Bueller?
My wife out there didn't silence her phone. Oh, like you listen to me.
Tell the truth, Bob. It's yes, dear.
You're right, I'm wrong, I won't do it again. What's that? Oh, yeah, for everybody.
Can we try again, Andrew?
Yeah, I'll try to talk as loud as I can and see if you can hear me.
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Fabulous.
Good evening. We'll call a special meeting to order at 5:04. Could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, of course. Councilmember Switzer.
Here.
Councilmember Phillips.
Here.
Councilmember Holt.
Here.
Councilmember McCafferty.
Here.
Councilmember Schecker.
Here.
Vice Mayor Granillo is not here. Mayor Armstrong.
Here.
And our town attorney is present remotely tonight.
Item 2A, consideration of possible action to modify the fiscal year 25-26 staffing schedule, reclassifying 2 positions in the Public Works Department. Madam Town Manager.
Thank you.
Oh, they called in.
Mayor,
Big wigs.
council, thank you for accommodating the special meeting tonight. As you know, our Public Works Director and Town Engineer resigned, and we always take advantage of those opportunities to see where we might make, before we hire, are there opportunities to improve our organization, both fiscally and efficiencies? And we have done that in collaboration with finance, human resources, and the staff down at Public Works. And they're very much excited about this potential plan, so I'm anxious to roll it out to you. So always we talk about the basis of why we do things. We're trying to, every year, do better at complying with our code and following our code in the things that we do. So I wanted to make clear, talk through that and why this is coming for you today. Because as you know, the town code sets authority with the town manager to run the operations, make hiring decisions, and those kinds of things. It also says that whenever I'm doing something regarding a director level position, that I need to consult with you and get your input, which is absolutely imperative for good government. But it does not have to do with either of those things yet, because we're not hiring. Why this is coming before you is the other part in our code that says once you approve a staffing schedule, so in the budget, this is the staffing schedule. It's every position, what their ranges are, how many we have in each department. Once that's approved in the budget, it cannot be changed without coming back to council. So the reorganization plan that we have in mind actually is changing some titles and some ranges. So I'm coming to you to ask for a change to the approved personnel schedule and ranges in our budget for fiscal year 25-26. And the other point with that some people asked, if it's not increasing the budget, why do I need to come? Because it doesn't matter if it increases the budget or not. If it's changing that schedule you approved, it needs to come back before you for approval. So that is why we are here. So the amendment request, what we're looking to achieve and what I'm proposing to you today, number one is operational efficiencies. We found that there are opportunities for us to become more responsive, have better customer service, and have a better line of staffing oversight and direct responsiveness to staff and engagement. Having a public works director with all the divisions reporting to them is too wide of a scope for somebody to be effective. For each of those managers and each of those employees to have access, having 2 engineers means 2 levels that sometimes plans need to go through, and there could be a bottleneck there. And we are only required by town code to have a town engineer. We don't need to have 2, and it doesn't need to be the public works director. So we considered all of those things in this and how we can be more responsive, how we can be more effective, how staff can have better access to their managers and supervisors. The other part, again, is directorial effectiveness. There was too many people reporting to our former public works director. It was hard to be effective. Oh. How many? Oh, direct. He had 9 direct reports that came to him. So that was part of it. The other part was opportunities for advancement. We want to recognize, reward, and retain existing talent in our organization. We have our assistant town engineer is a full-fledged engineer. He was doing many of these duties, but not really being compensated for it. So we're recognizing what he's been doing along, formalizing that, giving that employee who has been a good employee for a long time, who's effective and efficient, a path to advance in our organization without losing him outside the organization. He also has an interest in being more involved in operations, but he, unfortunately, is not interested in being the public works director. So that was also part of our consideration. We would have gone that path first, but since that is not the direction he wants to go, he likes the engineering, he likes he would love to be more involved in operations. He's done operations before. So this allows us to take our existing talent and use that effectively and reward it. Financial stewardship is always important. So we looked at the numbers, looked at where we're at, and we think we can improve operational efficiency without increasing the budget bottom line. So we'll go through the math. I know there's a lot of questions. I've had some interactions about how that math works out. So we'll work through that with you. And we're also going to talk about an alternative that we are proposing for consideration that will assure that we meet that goal. And finally, recruitment. Recruiting for a public works director rather than a public works director / town engineer. If they have to have an engineering degree, all the public works directors out there in a lot of towns and cities, their public works director, most of them are not required to be an engineer. Most of them are big enough, they're 2 different divisions. You have an engineering division, you have a public works division, and then they even divide out again as you get bigger when utilities is on its own. We're not big enough for that yet, but our public works director, since we have an engineer on site, on staff, does not need to be an engineer. By separating that out and making them just a public works director, we can have a wider pool, which I think is important in trying to get and recruit for this position. And the other part of that is looking at our organization. We have somebody with engineering skills, but we have water, we have roads. So now we can look at somebody maybe instead of having the same skill set as our current engineer, but somebody who has got water certifications. Maybe they have operational experience in roads. Maybe they've been in an AMA like we are, and so they have good water resource. So now we can maybe balance our current talent with some other things that we think are really important for those things we're going to be talking about in the future. And obviously water and wastewater are very big for us in the future planning. So this allows us to look for somebody that maybe has more experience in those areas. So those are our goals in this plan. So currently, in the personnel schedule as approved, we have a public works director, town engineer, one position at grade 41, and you can see the range minimum and maximum. And we have assistant town engineer, one position at a grade 35, and you can see there the minimum and maximum. What we're proposing, excuse me, is instead of a public works director, town engineer at 41, we move that position to simply a public works director. And since we're taking away the engineering requirement, we feel that it is appropriate to move that down a grade to a 40. And then the assistant town engineer, which is currently at 35, making that an assistant public works director / town engineer and moving that up to a 38. So you can see the range changes, and I know in here there's some issue about looking where that is and how the math works. One of the important things to know is that our current assistant town engineer has been with us a long time and is currently I think just outside his range. So we're currently paying him already outside of the 35 range. So I think that's important as we talk about the math, is that even though this is saying it's at 130, he's already above that currently. So that was part of our calculation.
Can
I
I
ask a
stop?
question?
Yes.
No.
I was just curious, how is that possible?
Yeah, we go from a 35 to a 36.
No, I mean, just at the 35, I've just never seen government like that. So I'm just if the pay range says there, other than once you top out and you hit the max, that's the bummer of being at the top. But how do you go above that? How is that possible?
Yeah. It exceptions in not only here, I've seen it otherwise with long-term employees where that happens a lot of times. Either they'll cap them or they'll put them above, and when we do like merit increases, you can't go above anymore. You're there, you're stuck there. You can get the COLA, but yes, if it is approved and it's in the approved salary schedule that way, yes,
So
he
that
is
range
being
just
paid above that.
So the range is just a suggestion of pay.
Well, is there a
Yeah.
is there
Yes,
something in
yes.
the town code that maxes it at like 10% above the range, or I mean,
I've never seen.
so I was a
that.
county,
Oh, okay.
and by county rule they could only go 10% out of a range, but I didn't know if there was anything in the
In the feds, we couldn't
Chino.
go on
No.
the range.
No, and I think that, now that you said that, I think in one of my other jurisdictions, there was a maximum you could go above, but I do not believe we have that in our code. So it is negotiated on a case-by-case basis, and as long as it's approved in the budget process, we can go above that. So you say it's suggested. Yes, we try to be in that, but it happens with long-term employees who sometimes, as they could be above
Do
that.
you have the exact figure?
What was the question, Robert?
What
What
is
is
the
his
current
rate?
town engineer
So his-
paid?
So the range is 130, and he's currently 132. Good question.
Can I ask, what is the difference between the personnel schedule and ranges and the general employee salary schedule?
I think they should be the same. Or is that the one that,
Well, under the general salary schedule, we already have a town engineer at Schedule 38.
oh, okay. So the salary schedule is a comprehensive listing of all kinds of titles. It could titles we've had in the past, titles we've had that have come and gone. But if they are not currently, this one only has those that are currently programmed and being paid. So we have lots of titles in there that have been used in the past and have been graded out in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are current, one that we're currently using. And in fact, from that grader one, we couldn't pull a title out of there and use it without coming to you and having it approved.
Okay.
So that's a good question. Yes, that one has lots of things in there. I think my old title's still in there, Public Affairs Director, because that was a valid position at one time in the town. So
Is that what
thank
you
you
were called?
for that question.
That was your title? I didn't know that.
That was my second title.
I never knew what your title was.
Yeah.
so, all right.
It was assistant and then it was that. Okay.
So to
Yes.
go
sir.
back on something,
Mm-hmm.
when there was an opening in Public Works, you took one of the positions and you wanted to make it pay more, so you made it a senior. And you came to council for approval. So I'm a little confused
Mhm.
on why the 35, the assistant town engineer 35, was made a 36 without coming to town for approval.
No, it is at 35. We're asking, it never,
He's not getting paid a 36 now?
No.
He got
No.
bumped up.
he is outside of the 35 range, but he is still classified as a 35. He is not classified as a 36.
So how far does that range go then if it's the 35 and he's reached 130? How high can that go?
There currently is, I would have to ask our attorney, we need to look. I don't believe there is a cap that's in our code that says you can only go 10% above. So there isn't necessarily a cap that somebody can be paid outside their range. You are correct.
All right.
Yep.
Not agreed, but okay.
Okay, so the proposed, again, so we go back and we're going from a 40 to a 41 and a 35 to a 38.
Now you're going from a 41 to a 40.
41 to a 40. Yes, thank you, sir,
said
for that
40
correction.
to 41.
So we're going down for the Public Works Director / Town Engineer from a 41 to a Public Works Director at a 40. And we're going from an Assistant Town Engineer at a 35, and it is a class 35, even though he is currently being paid above the range maximum as stated, and to an Assistant Public Works Director / Town Engineer at a 38. And he will be paid within that range in the new plan.
And so that's a lot more than what we're paying now. It's $16,000 more. If you have a 35 and a 41, that comes up to $304,261. If you have a 38 and a 40, that comes up to $316,471.
And are you adding the range maximums? Is that what you're doing? or
That's the maximums, yeah.
So yes,
It's a $20,000. It's a $18,000 raise on mid.
yes, I understand that, and that math is absolutely correct. The difference is our Assistant Public Works Director, Town Engineer will not be hired at the range maximum. We know what that range will be. The Public Works Director, we don't know yet where they're going to come in on that. We assume it'll be about midpoint. And we'll get into the math a little bit more because I know that's important. Okay? So we're looking at what we anticipate those two positions being paid and what that means compared to what the old position was, the two old positions were actually being paid. Because whatever the range minimums and maximums in the end aren't as important as what those salaries we're going to be paying out will be.
I'm looking at maximum.
Yep.
Because the decision we make now is you're probably going to bring somebody in at mid, and then right away they get up to maximum. So that's what I'm looking at.
And understand that if in our hiring authority, we still have to be in with whatever budget we come to. So I'm not asking you for more money. So if whatever we negotiate has to be within that budget, otherwise I have to come back to you again anyway. So if I wanted to hire this person at the maximum and we have our new assistant and it comes above that, I would have to come back to you and have a budget amendment for that.
Terry, what was Frank's? What was his pay at?
He was
Just under 172 is what he left us at.
It's
Mhm.
not directly related, but it's related. So you said you had, the Public Works has a division of labor, and I'm just making sure because the development services, how many direct reports or disciplines does the development services director have?
So the development services director has code enforcement, planning, what am I missing?
The building inspection, right?
Building inspection.
So she has
building
three,
code.
so three direct reports per se?
So, yes.
Okay, so I guess the question is that a fair so we're asking for the public to work, it just seems like an unfair division of labor and pay. So the director of development services will remain at a 41 with a much smaller division of labor, while the public works director would be at a 40 with literally 3 times the responsibility.
Same with finance.
You know,
With finance, yeah.
so I guess, is that a
Yes.
fair and equitable distribution of resources? Because if I was the public works director, not really paying attention to what everybody else gets paid until I got here, then I realized, well, wait a minute, I've got 3 times the responsibility that you do, and I'm getting less than you. Is that fair?
That's a good question. And we looked at where those are and understand that, those were both 41s before this. But since we're taking away the engineering component, and we'll talk a little bit about the salary analysis that was done, we're comfortable that we can hire within that range and that the person we hire will be comfortable with that. That is a consideration that whenever we do each year class and compensation, we look at those things. And we will continue to look at that, but that's not one thing that's before you, obviously, tonight. But we appreciate the input. Okay. Now, because we're not sure where the public works director that we hire may come in, and we think the math will work, but one of the things that we want to do, we have another opportunity, because as you also know, the senior management analyst left at the same time. So last year, we moved, as Councilmember Shacker alluded to from a management technician to a senior, and then we had a senior management analyst. Since we put the other one up, we think now with this division that we're going to do, that management analyst used to oversee the other administrative position. Instead, we're going to have one administrative position report to both. So the director will have an administrative support position, and the assistant director will have an administrative support position. So we think we believe that it's appropriate to downgrade that position. So the alternative we want to consider tonight is to take that public management analyst position at a 27 and ask you to allow us to replace that with an administrative technician senior at a 20. Now, we were going to do that later, wait and see what happened with the public works director, but as we were talking about it, if I have to come back to you anyway and ask for that, and we think that's the direction that we are going to go, we want to put that as a possibility tonight for you to amend the original motion we were asking you to consider and allow us to do all 3 positions so that it gives us even more space to make sure we stay within budget. And we think we're very confident that the senior administrative technician will give us all the skills we need to support the director in the new role, as opposed to what we had in the management analyst. So with that, that gives us even more cushion, and Katie will be taking us through those numbers in a second.
Of course you will.
Can I get those?
Yes.
I didn't see that coming. That was a good curveball.
That's a good curveball. Yeah.
You want to go to
That covers the difference.
Yes, we want to go from a 27 to a 20.
That completely covers it.
So from a public management analyst at a 27 to a senior administrative technician at a 20.
I wish we would have got this earlier.
Yeah, we were going to wait and see how the public director came in, and if it came in where we thought it would be, we'd be fine. But as we talked about it more, and then if it didn't, we'd come back to you with this one. We had these conversations. Remember, this all happened very quickly. Frank left us, and we had about a week and a half to move forward and make a plan. And we want to get this out on the street, so we needed to get it to you as an item quickly. Otherwise, we can't hire. So yes, it's kind of evolved in the process, or we might have done this originally. But as the conversations evolved and saying, rather than coming back again to you, and I was just going to say, I probably will come back to you again. Let's just ask you as an alternative if you want to consider that tonight. So that's how that evolved.
One stone.
Well, because with what we're dealing with now, the 35 to the 38 and 41 to the 40, we have printouts of all the duties and responsibilities. Okay, right now I have no idea what the responsibilities are or the duties from the 27 or the 20.
And understand that that question's operational in nature and not policy. We can provide, we'll absolutely provide those for you if that will be helpful, but we as a staff and as an operational manager can make those decisions of what we think those positions need and what's appropriate within those grades. But absolutely, we'll get those descriptions to you if you'd like to see them.
I'm eager to hear from that young lady down there.
Yes, you will hear from both the other experts in the room tonight, both our Human Resources Director and our Finance Director.
Councilmember Shecker, can you make sure your mic is not muted for me? The red button should be on. Is it on?
Now it is.
Okay, thank you.
Where were you before?
So one of the questions that several of you had, and we appreciate that, is, you know, how did we determine that this is going to be fair compensation and that we're going to be able to hire within this range? And so I'm going to ask our Human Resources Director to come up and talk about that process.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So basically, there are two types of external market comparison approaches. One is a regional market comparison approach, which looks through a recruitment lens, and the other is a population market comparison approach, which looks through an equity lens. We use both types of external market comparison approaches, but weigh them differently depending on the role and the actual hiring reality that we're experiencing. So regional comparisons, again, support recruitment and retention, whereas population analysis compares or supports equity. Both are necessary for a sustainable compensation program, but weighted appropriately. In this case, we weighed our external marketing comps more so on the direct competitive regional market analysis, as we did that because this type of external comparison is best suited for your hard-to-fill positions, highly specialized roles like directors, licensed trades positions, where you compete directly with nearby cities, counties, special districts, even the private sector, or we can lose candidates late in the hiring process due to not bringing in your salary at the correct rate from the beginning. You'll just lose time. So why it matters is candidates don't apply statewide. So using a population-based comparison doesn't really lend itself well to this situation. They typically apply within their commuting distance or their desired region where they want to or plan to live. It also reflects real-time supply and demand, not population numbers from 2 years ago or even 1 year ago. And they're more accurately used for retention risk, vacancy duration, and turnover pressure, which we're experiencing right now with this position. This is a high-level position and one of our higher, one of our departments that has more FTEs or full-time equivalents than other departments. So it's critical that we fill the position. So I could go into more detail if you'd like to, but we weighed both comparators and took both into consideration and placed more weight on the regional comparator because it makes more sense in this specific time-sensitive situation. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Wait, can I ask Laura a question? I understand what you said. It was not quite splitting atoms, but it was close. And I agree with Terry, it's operational how she wants to use her staff. I don't have a problem. But in terms of salary, is it a fair distribution of salary with it just seems so uneven a 40 public works and a 41 development services. When I look at the line of division in labor, it just seems there's so much more on the plate of a public works director than there is on development services. That's not to underscore what Lori does. I'm just saying that's
Yeah.
what, and yet we're going to return with a lesser salary. I just find that difficult. But I'm just throwing it out. It's your decision. I get that, and I'm not trying to interfere, but I
So
want to know if
we
it's
do
fair.
look into a variety of things, and jump in if you want to. But we do look into a variety of things when we're comparing positions. And it's not just the number of full-time equivalents that you have reporting to you, but it's also the duties and responsibilities, the education and experience required for the specific position.
Okay.
So even though you may have 7 people reporting to you and this person has 20, I mean, that's not the only thing that we compare when we're evaluating positions. We also use an external firm called Public Sector Personnel Consultants. So we can get a third-party, unbiased recommendation, and it's just a recommendation because we want to see what an outside firm says to us. We get it for free. It's just a
All right.
complimentary to us.
So, but this isn't an issue, though. It's not an issue.
I don't believe it's an
Okay.
issue, and we also take into consideration not just the external market, but internal compression. We want to make sure that we're not creating unnecessary internal compression with our existing staff, because that's our primary responsibility, who we have now. And we want the new people to fit in with the existing staff.
Yes, and the other point on that, I think, illustrates it best. The other 41 in ours is our finance director. Our finance director doesn't have the divisions, doesn't have the direct reports, doesn't have the number of positions, but the work that she does and is responsible for is of such a nature and importance to what we do in our financial integrity that we pay that person at a level
Plus,
of
she
a
has the
41.
money.
Plus, she holds a pocketbook. But so that's a really good example, and that's in most cases. Finance directors are usually one of the highest compensated, just like attorneys tend to be. But even if they would not compare anywhere else in the organization with the amount of direct reports that they have. But it's the nature of the position.
If you're good with it,
I
I
am.
get it. I just-
But thank you
just
for the
asking a
question. Yep, appreciate that. The other thing before we go on to the financials, and Katie will get into that more in depth, but we wanted to look at it to make sure not only this year, so that when we hire, we bring it in, because this year we're going to have some salary savings during the vacancy and those kinds of things that will be under budget this year, but using that same budget line. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with COLA or merit, but just looking at these positions and where they are, that this will carry forward and not require additional funding to allocate it in the next fiscal year. Yeah, it just makes it this year because we have salary savings, but next year we're going to require more money. We wanted to make sure that wasn't going to happen, and that's the other reason we're proposing that alternative 3, because that's going to make sure that can happen. And with that, I'll turn it over to our financial expert to give you more information.
She's going to use fuzzy math.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So this is a summarized version of what we worked through, so I'm going to walk through it with you. So for the current year, for 25-26, the budget of a little over $823,000 is for the engineering positions. So there are 6 positions within that category. What I did was we looked at actual payrolls to date. So all the payrolls through the December 11th payroll to get actuals, and then projections going forward after that point for the rest of the payrolls this fiscal year to bring us to the projected amount in the 25-26 projected column. And with that, you can see we're going to have a savings of about $43,000 this year. A lot of that is due to the vacancy of the administrative technician. There was a vacancy at the beginning of the year with that position. Additionally, with the management analyst position being vacant currently, along with the public works director position being vacant currently, there's savings captured from that as well, even with the payouts to the prior employees that left. So with that, then we continue to look at, as Terry said, looking if we keep those positions as we're planning to hire them. So with the new public works director, it was budgeted at $155,000. So a little higher than mid-range for the Public Works Director position that we're wanting to go to. And that's how I calculated it within here. And same with the Public Works Management Analyst. We dropped that position down to the grade 20. So there's some salary savings from that in the future year budget of just over 16,000. And then for the Public Works Director, there's salary savings of 24,000. So the change for the Assistant Public Works Director / Town Engineer position causes an increase of 24,000. And then we did have a little bit of an increase on the Administrative Technician Senior position because, as you remember, we brought that before you in August. And that nets to about $10,000 less for the budget for fiscal year 26-27 based on the current numbers. Now, keep in mind, like Terry mentioned, if in future budget discussions, if wages like COLA or merits are discussed, or things that we can't necessarily control as well, so like health insurance premiums, if the town absorbs a portion of that, or workers' comp rates, unemployment rates, those kind of things would apply across the board. And right now we just have them in our projections as apples to apples to the current year because we don't know how those things are going to change. But this actual move itself does not increase the bottom line. If that new position is hired at 155,000, we would have this savings. Now,
And
if it's higher,
using the same formula, do you know what happens in 27, 28?
We did not project out that far, but same thing. It would continue to stay the same unless those other insurance, workers' comp, those rates changed across the board
Which they're
townwide.
going to.
So it would be any increase to it would be at council's discretion during budget talks for those COLAs and merits. Now it does give that flexibility of the decrease of budget of like the 10,000. So that could be something that gives flexibility if, you know, it does need to come in closer to the top of the range, but even at the top of the range, which is the 165, we would still be within, but the goal is to hire that at no higher than the 155. And that's a lot of information, so I'm happy to
You got lucky.
answer any questions.
Questions for Katie?
I guess this could be for you. So if you're gonna put that position at a 38, what range does that come in at?
So the Assistant Public Works Director, Town Engineer position, the range of 38 goes to the 150,000. And that would be, he would be right above that with the changes that are in place. So it would be right at like 152. And that's because he's already out of range right now. And then when you move to a new role, typically there's an increase associated with that.
Isn't it kind of like a policy that when you get a big one like that, you just come in at a minimum range?
You
reading
don't
that
know
down.
they're gonna make less. You wouldn't expect them to make less.
No, but he would come in already above
It's not coming
mid-range.
in less.
At his current pay, he's already above mid-range in a 38. Mid-range is about one. Yeah, but I mean, if he gets, if he goes to a 38, mid-range in a 38 is about 130. So he's
And
already,
he's already above that.
above mid-range in a 38.
And so, absolutely, thank you. So even putting him into the 38, his current wage is already above mid-range, and adding additional responsibilities would warrant an increase in wages.
But since you brought up responsibilities, I went over all of them, duties and responsibilities, and they're fairly much the same except for the wording. And so duties and responsibilities, I mean, I got them here and I went over them. They're pretty much the same, from a 35 to a 38 to a 40. So I don't see to where all this money gets from one range to the other one. The duties and responsibilities are primarily the same.
So What
They're
I will
all
say,
right here.
yeah, oh, absolutely, and I had made a note, because you talked about that earlier, and I didn't think I answered that good enough, or maybe it was a little dismissive, but the job descriptions are fluid. We change those and we'll massage those all the time. They're typically, we try to capture as best what we, what the industry standards, we see what other places are, and even though there may be the same duties in one and another, but it's where you're classed. An administrative technician that reports to a director, we're gonna have similar responsibilities to one that might report to a division head, but they'll be paid differently. Is like the administrative assistant that works in my office is going to have a very similar job description to the assistant that's reporting to the public works director, but that person is reporting to a public works director rather than in the town manager and mayor's office. So those things will be reflective in the wage, probably more than what's described in the position. I don't know if that answers your question or it's helpful, but.
There's a lot of words, but that's okay.
Well, Terry, just one last question for me. As I previously told you on the phone, I don't care how you distribute your I do care as long as the
Yes.
work's getting done, but what you do with your staff and how you effectuate the operations is not of concern of mine, as long as we stay in budget. And Katie came up and said, yep, nope, we're gonna have a windfall of almost 10 grand. So I was like, okay, that made it up by the drop. It's not gonna cost the taxpayers a dime more, so at that point, it should be all your decision. I get that. But at some point, I think the discussion about exceeding this is the only government I've ever seen where you can exceed the pay scales. I've never, and I've been in government my whole life, and I've never seen it where, and then we're going from a 35 to a 38, which I don't have a problem with now at all, but we're already saying, oh, but we're gonna go really at 38 and a half, because we're gonna pay them above the pay scale.
That might be something for council to take up in the future.
Absolutely.
We
Council
I
member.
think we need to have a fixed amount, because this is the only town that I've ever, this is the only form of government I've ever seen that.
I have been in jurisdictions where people have been paid above. I do think it's a good conversation for council to say, do we want to have a policy regarding that? Because there isn't currently one. So we could say, as long as there isn't one, we do what we think is best in the situation, but you could say it can't go above 10%.
Yeah.
Can I mention something?
Yes.
I don't know if it'll help or not, but it's a very common thing, maybe not in STEP programs, but we're in a pay-for-performance program. They're called red circle rates, and when it's handled in a budget process, during the budget process, it's a budget-approved red circle rate. So knowing that that position is going to exceed the maximum, especially if the scale does not move up with the cost of living adjustments. And in this case, we did not move up our cost of our pay scale last year, and that is the reason why.
I thought we did do a 2% COLA.
We did do a COLA, but we didn't move our pay scale with it,
Didn't come up.
Oh, okay.
because you have choices. Do you want to move your pay scale along with your COLAs, or do you want to leave it as is for a recruitment tool, knowing that some staff members will fall into a red circle rate for pay for performance?
Because that's not an uncommon practice where you hit the top and you peter out. I mean, it happens in the military. It happens
Yeah.
in the government all over. I mean, it happened to me. You hit the step 10 and there's
And
no-
we don't have steps. We're on a
right.
pay for performance. That's the big difference.
I guess I don't have experience
Has-
with that part.
Has there in recent history been any employee that did not get a merit salary increase in any position?
Not recently.
'Cause-
And that's a good reason to stay on top of your comp and class studies. Having them periodically will make sure that your pay scale is in line with your recruitment and retention.
Right, but doing salary comparisons throughout the state, we're one of the top payers in the whole state, regardless of size. Yet our median income for people that live in this town, for a family, is under $60,000 a year.
And I think that is, we're always conscious that we stay on posted agenda topics. So I think what I'm hearing is there's some discussion we want to have regarding personnel during the budget process.
Oh, it's more than just personnel during the budget process. I mean, we are top heavy, really top heavy in salary.
I did a salary survey for this position in the state of Arizona with like-sized towns. And we are definitely above every single town of like size in the state of Arizona.
And hopefully, in saying that, hopefully that leads more confidence into that we will be able to hire at the rate that we're looking to hire.
I agree. You know why what we worry about it is because our revenues, we're getting to the
Yeah.
point where we may have to cut services just to keep up with existing staffing because we're just the rate of our salaries is not increasing at the rate of our revenue, and unless we can reverse that, which
The rate of
hope
our
we
salaries is above our rate of revenue.
yes, the rate of increase, and that's
I hate
why
to
we're
bring
worried.
this up, but you need to come back down to the agenda
Yeah,
items on hand tonight.
I think we're still somewhat okay as long as we continue with the salary part of it, because that was an agendized portion of it. So I think we're still okay. We're just keep it in that salary. Reason why you're discussing this is because she's asking to stay within salary. So as long as we stay on that topic, I think we're okay.
And so I think the important point of that is, that we are planning for our upcoming budget process and how we're going to take you through and where we're going to spend time. So hearing what you are saying now will help us in that process and making sure we can address some of the concerns and give you an opportunity to talk about those things.
so we can beat up on you.
So with that, we have two considerations. The original request that we had for you would be to approve the motion to modify the 2025-26 staffing schedule
It's the same thing.
for the two positions. I am requesting that you consider as your motion the alternative, so that we can do all three positions and not have to come back to you and ask for the third one again later.
You're asking for approval of
Option 2.
option 2.
And if I can just help real quick, I know it says approve an amended motion. This will not be an amended motion because there is no motion on the
Motion
floor.
Right. Well, this
So
would
I
be-
think
I'll
what she
move
was
to- yeah, we'll make a
referring to
move.
was the staff report and the staff recommendation initially, which is why she used the word amended. I just want to make that very clear.
Okay, last question. Mr. Legal Beagle, where you at on this?
Mayor, I haven't heard anything in the proposed discussion or the proposal from the town manager that gives me any pause. I think you have a lot of interesting policy discussions to have on other topics that are related, but you're in your lane for tonight.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. In that case, I will entertain a motion from somebody who thinks they can make it to follow this.
I can make the motion, but I'd like to have just a brief discussion with these guys. To make
Go
sure.
right ahead.
Okay, so a lot of good information came out here. Just before I make the motion, I'm going to make the motion that's consistent with number 2. And the reason why is because I don't care how the town manager runs her operation as long as it doesn't cost the taxpayers more. And with the change in that one position, she's absorbed the differences. And I think it was a nearly 10 grand surplus. So at that point, to me, it's mute. It's your call to do whatever you want with your staff, within the law, of course.
And that's as long as you go with number 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Further discussion? Bob?
I still don't understand how it's going to be cheaper. Okay, I listened to what you said, Katie. I listened to what you said. I'm still looking at the $16,000 more per year, maximum pay with a 38 and a 40. Right now, we're paying $304,000 for a 35 and a 41.
Katie, can you come up again? Maybe this will kind of explain it. So your figures figured on hiring a director in the mid-level, correct?
Correct.
And then also giving the town engineer, assistant director, a bump from where he's currently at.
Correct.
And you're still 9,000 below in fiscal 26, 27.
Correct.
the drop.
When you
With,
add
with,
in
with changing the position from a 27 to a
Correct.
20.
Two
Okay.
20s.
correct.
but-
So
but
So it's
what
the
I'm-
lower position that's saving the money, not the director and the assistant director.
Right,
It's
exactly.
the position below it that's saving all the money.
Okay,
It-
what I'm looking at is what you're gonna pay to 38. Okay? From what you're paying now,
Is your assumption of what we're paying the public works director the maximum? Is that the number you're using? What number, so I can be clear on what you're using for
Okay,
your
so-
calculation?
So what
Bothers
we're
all-
paying now, well, what I thought we were paying, according to the paperwork that was given to me, okay, was he was getting paid a 35. I didn't find out he was getting paid more until tonight. So I don't think that's quite right. Okay, so you laid that on me. So I really don't know what he's getting paid now. You say he's getting paid over 130,000.
132, yeah.
Okay. So that changes a whole bunch of the numbers.
And then you got to take in consideration Frank was at the top of the scale, and they're going to hire in at the mid of the scale. There's another savings.
They think.
They hope.
Okay, they
Certainly.
don't know.
But there's a 16,000, just using the top end scale from the 2788, and then the low end scale, or the top end scale of the 20, there's a $16,000 difference right there. To me, that absorbs, even over time, without the COLA and all that other stuff, that absorbs the differences between what we were originally looking at.
And
So
plus,
it shouldn't, I mean, it's going to cost us more because everything's going to cost us more. But in terms of action, well, actually, there's a savings. It's not.
and if you're not going to require the
I don't see
town,
savings.
if you're not going to require the director to have an engineering degree, then I think it's more than enough pay to hire mid-range at a 40. I mean, I think that's actually too high in my opinion, but that's my opinion. That you should be able to find a very qualified applicant.
You guys can.
And one of the things that, whether it'll help or not, what I think we will do is just send something out to you and say, this is what we're currently paying the actual wage within those salaries and what we look to, because minimums and maximums, as you say, or grade ranges, you know, that's a little bit ambiguous. We know what we're paying those current positions, what we were paying our public works / town engineer. We know what we're looking to pay the new position. And then we can say, this is what we had been paying, this is what we look to be paying, and then we'll have that final figure when we do hire, so we can tell you where it actually netted compared to what was projected. I don't know if that'll be helpful, but we can provide that.
So it could be more than what you're thinking on paying. It could be more than the grade 40.
No, we are
And what
at our,
if you can't find anybody for the grade 40?
if we can't find anybody for a grade 40, we're gonna, we have several steps.
Bob,
So
I don't think that's.
I don't
feasible
think it'll be an
because
issue.
The grade 40 is already above the state average by a large amount.
Yeah.
So for a town this size,
Yeah.
I mean,
And there's
it's
local applicants.
it's
There's
way
all-
above.
Yeah,
There's
We're-
always
we're
what
con-
ifs,
Huh?
okay?
absolutely. And if that happens and we find we're in that position and the budget can't accommodate it, we'll come back to you and have that conversation. Because I can't outspend the budget without your permission.
Well, we agreed on a budget on that position for 25, 26, and you've changed it. Because the position that we agreed on in the budget was a 35.
So in the approved salary, yes, so in the approved scheduling ranges, it was a 35 with that range. Now, do we publish our actual, we don't.
No.
Okay,
No, I-
so
I
any
don't.
other outliers, as you call, what was, there was the term you used, red? So, other employees that we may have in that red circle, I think probably Michelle, who's been with us 30 years, I'm assuming that she probably is too.
Okay.
So if you want, I understand what you're saying, so I think it's important that we can point those out in the budget going forward. Anybody that falls outside of these ranges.
Okay, I'm done.
Honestly, Bob, we're with this
I'm
change,
done.
we're going to save. We really are. I wouldn't tell you that we were if I didn't believe it.
It's new math, I guess, huh?
But if we took it all to the top steps, are we still saving?
Well, that's what I do. I always go to the top, assuming they're going to step out or whatever the word is. So I took it to the top. It's still, I mean, just looking at the two, just from the 27 to the 20, that's 16,000. I was looking at a $12,000 difference just between the 40 and the 38 changes. You know what I mean? And I was like, how it was 12,000 and some change. And I was like, where are we going to make up? Where are you covering that? well, you've already covered that plus some. So at that point, I'm like, in my mind, I don't care. She can do what she wants.
Well, it was
I
verified
think-
tonight that if you go to the top, you just got more.
Not necessarily. That's not a given. And if
Well,
we,
I don't
if we
know
go
that.
forward looking at a budget discussion and you want to instill a cap or something along that line, or say, we're not going to do merit or anything, that's for future budget discussions and putting that in place. Right now, it's not in place. Right now is in place is what we're paying.
Okay.
So, does that clarify anything or make it a little muddier?
It's really muddy, but that's okay.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this? Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'm waiting for Aaron to pull it up.
Oh, go back.
Our wonderful awarded clerk. Okay, I'll make a motion to modifying the fiscal year 2025-26 staffing schedule by reclassifying 3 positions within Public Works Department. The title of Public Works Director and Town Engineer to Public Works Director and reduced to grade 40. Title of Assistant Town Engineer to Assistant Public Works Director, Town Engineer, increased to grade 38. Public Works Analyst changed to Administrative Technician Senior, reduced to grade 20.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Guess what, folks? We're going to do a roll call vote.
Make her work.
Bob,
No,
Larry,
I'm gonna say no just because I can explain it later.
Robert,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
myself, yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Sherry, you're up.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That does not require a roll call vote. We are adjourned.
You should have made